Hey guys, Jeff Francoeur here. Thanks for listening to our content, and please like and subscribe. Before we get to the podcast, if you have middle school or high school kids that play sports and you don't want to fundraise like me, we got you covered. My buddy Chris Carneal owns Booster. Chris?
We help schools and sports teams raise funds in a super fun and engaging way. In fact, the last 22 years, we've raised $750 million, and we can't wait to help you. Choose booster.com.
Welcome back to Pure Athlete. We have a special podcast. First of all, 20 podcasts, guys. Congratulations.
We got there.
Never thought we'd make it.
Never did either, but
It's been fun.
It has been. We've had so many great guests, and we'll talk a little bit at the end of this episode. But what we want to do, we talked about it last week, was have some fans, have some people that have listened to our podcast, send some emails and, just really spend 30 minutes or so just, talking about what our favorite things were. We got some more great guests coming up, obviously, in the future. But, Britt, I'll let you start it with a question.
You bet. So these questions were sent in on social media for the most part. And so uncensored, we're just going to dive right into these. These guys, we haven't really even heard these. My producer put these together. So here we go.
Yeah, if there's some dumb ones, we're going to call you out.
And if you could block out the curse words, maybe that's the only thing.
First question, how does everyone, meaning coaches, parents, and players that are involved in a team sport, pursue team success and individual success simultaneously across various team roles? And the follow-up is, how does this change at different levels of youth sports?
That's a great question because as a dad of a lot of kids who played sports, it's a struggle. It's a struggle if you're part of a team that's having success, but you're individually not having success, or if your kid's not having success. And I really think that's where the parent has to come into play to really encourage your kid that it's more than just about you. And you're playing this for a team, which means it's really trying to help your team. And if you're struggling, if it's in baseball or basketball, whatever, you have to figure out what your role is at that point. And it's to be a great teammate. It's to be a great cheerleader for your team. It's to be a great practice player. But it is really hard. It's really hard to overcome your individual failure at the time and still be a good teammate. That's a really tough thing to do.
We were just talking about this the other day. I was talking with someone, I can't remember who, and I said, I think when we look at sports now, it's so tough because there's so much individual, teaching. Like even baseball, you have a team, but how many guys, with your son in high school, have different hitting coaches, have different whatever, and they all come into one. And so I think with that being said, I agree, the coach and the parents try to get these kids to buy in together. But I also believe that the kids, if they come around each other and you lift up other people, I've always said this, a servant first attitude. If you're there to lift up, you automatically get lifted up because you're helping your teammates, you're helping, whatever, and it makes you better. And I've always said that. I think that's very important that, you come together as a team and realize that, yes, individually, you're going to stand out 100%. And you need to. I mean, that's how you get to the next level. When I think back to high school for me, yes, I wanted to stand out because it helped me get drafted, it helped me do this. But at the same time, some of my best friends were on that team. So how do I come alongside them, make them better? And I think when you do that, I think Kobe Bryant was one of the best I've ever seen at doing that, forcing his guys to rise up, but also you knew how good he was.
Yeah, so, there's really no right answer on this.
Yeah.
I think this is just a really tricky thing. I think about a basketball player at a high school who's, let's say he's 6'4", he's the best player on the team, and he has a chance to play at the next level, and he's the tallest guy on the team. Is a coach going to put him in the paint when he really, his chance later on is to be a guard? How do you balance the team needs versus the individual needs? And again, I'm not sure there's a right answer, but
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, in the way that the AAU programs are going right now, and the tournaments and the travel baseball and all the other things. It's a lot about these kids are kind of forced to have individual focus.
Yeah.
A friend of mine's kid plays on an AAU team that's really, really successful. But all the kids average about 8 or 9 points. Not one kid, but they're kind of, the pressure is for a kid to average 25 and 30 points. It's almost more important for that to happen than the team to win. This team wins a lot, but it's because all those kids have been taught it's about the team, even though it's AAU. But it's really hard in the culture today to reinforce that when you
To break that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, we talked about it in an early episode. A lot of the trend today is for kids, if it's not happening for them individually, let's change schools.
Yep.
Let's change teams. And kids will change, 3-4 times in a year and a half. And I think it was Matt Stinchcomb talked about in his podcast, which was early on, the value of sticking with a team and watching that team grow. And so I don't think there's necessarily a right or wrong answer,
No.
but jumping around 3 or 4 teams.
No, and it's, sometimes you're justified for going to another team. Absolutely. And as a parent, you got to look in and say, this isn't a good fit for my kid.
Yeah.
But when you start doing 3-4 different teams, like you said, in 2-3 years, maybe you need to start looking at the kid or the parent and you're the issue. And like you said, sometimes it's good to teach kids, look, you got to work for it.
Yeah.
You're not just going to go in and be handed a position. And if you're not, you know what? Get back out there and work harder. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that. You're not going to get every job. You're not going to get everything. It's good lessons that you can let the kid learn.
Yeah. And, what we've heard over and over again is if you're good enough, you're going to get
They're
seen.
going to find you.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's a good one.
Okay. Next question. I'm trying to have my 7 and 9-year-olds in as many different sports as possible. First of all, good job.
Yeah.
7 and 9. But my youngest son is 7, and he really enjoys and is doing very well in wrestling competitions. My thought was always, when the season is over, to move to the next sport. When do I have him play that sport all year long? We've talked a lot about this.
Yeah, I think first of all, I think that's great that you're getting your kids involved in different sports. I think 7's way too young to do that. Look, again, I think it's one of those things, like I think back to when I played baseball, football, and basketball were all 3 of the sports, but I always tended to play more baseball than I did the other 2 sports. Baseball is one thing. We get home from church on Sundays and we'd go up to the cage and hit, even when maybe I was playing football. So I don't think there's anything wrong with continuing to wrestle, continuing to do little things here and there, but they need a break. If you continue to do that, especially at that age, like you said, there might be an outlier every once in a while, but majority of kids are going to burn out. So I don't think it's keeping them around it is fine, but also let them continue to develop in other sports. Because even at 7, even if it was your older kid at 9, I'd tell you, they might develop different as they grow.
Definitely, I agree. I mean, there's just so much more chance of a burnout if they start focusing at that age, and they're just gonna, and their bodies are gonna change so much. You don't know what they're gonna look like after they hit puberty. Let them do as many things as possible. It's wonderful that it seems like he's had success at a young age at that sport, but I definitely think try as many things as possible. Stick with that sport and keep playing it, but don't make it your only thing.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we've talked a lot about in our first 20 episodes is what does the kid want to do?
Yeah.
And it's the parents who are targeting their kids at a really young age and saying, no, we're going to stop all these other sports, even though you like them, because we want you to focus here.
Yeah.
I mean, at some point in time, if the kid decides, this is my passion, I don't like these other sports, I want to do this, then that's a different scenario.
But
now,
they don't
at
know
7
that.
years old.
They don't know that. That's where I always say, yes, you want to listen to your kid, but at the same time, you're also the parent, and your kid sometimes needs to know you're not doing this. I'm not letting you.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing, though, that in Britain, I've talked about this a lot, is that if it's your first kid going through this journey, you don't know a lot.
Yeah.
So you're going to have a lot of coaches or experts or people that have businesses are going to come to you and say, hey, your kid's really good at this. I think your kid should really spend more time here, at this academy or at this training center. And you just don't know. And because you don't, unless you have a friend that's been through that journey that can give you and mentor you, kind of like, hey, take a deep breath, this choice you make for him or her when she's 9 years old or he's 9 years old is not going to dictate this total sports journey.
And I think to the Smoltzy podcast we had the other day when he said, take the 5 best kids out at 11 years old, put them back in at 13. And same thing with your 7-year-old. If he's a great wrestler now, you could take him away for 2 years and put him back, and I have a feeling he's going to be a darn good wrestler. So just let them keep developing at their own pace.
Yeah, and Brad, you talked about the guy coming in saying, hey, your kid's great. You should spend more time. A lot of times, if you read between the lines, what they're saying is you should spend more money.
Exactly.
So I don't want to paint with a broad brush, but money drives a lot in youth sports.
100%.
So don't be naive about when people are telling you to spend more time, they're saying spend more money.
And it's also, if it's not that, even best case scenario, it's just that's their passion.
Sure.
They love soccer. They love swimming. And so they want every kid to do that. And if they see a kid who's got aptitude in that, they're going to encourage you. But you just have to take a step back as a parent, especially if it's your first time around, and get some good advice and get some wisdom from folks, and listen to this podcast about, hey, let it be a longer journey. You don't worry about it right now. Let them just have fun at this age.
Okay, next question. I'm going to guess this question is for Jeff. Because it says, who is the most influential person in your life or your athletic career? This may be for you.
It probably could have been.
Y'all both were on a teetering on that.
I know. I've had a heck of a career. Go ahead. I'll let Jeff take this.
We'll let you take this.
Thank you, guys. So, I would say, when you look at the influence and different things, the one manager I keep coming back to all the time is Bobby Cox, and just the way that he coaches people, because I always truly believe you have 25 guys on a big league roster. They're all so different in so many ways. And Bobby would coach me different than he would coach Brian McCann. And I thought that was so great was he took the time to get to know the players, and this is what makes them push. And a lot of times for me, when I got struggling, he knew, instead of coming at me a different way, he tried to stay positive with me for hitting, not get the other way. And I think, for some guys, he would come down a lot harder. He would do it. And I think for me, with other stuff, he'd jump on me and he'd get on me. But with hitting, he knew I needed positivity when I was going up to that plate. So I thought Bobby just was a leader of men. He knew how to lead a locker room. He knew how to get 25 guys, kind of like the first question we talked about, 25 guys to buy into what he was doing. And he knew that if he did that, he was going to be successful. And of course, he's one of the greatest managers of all time.
Yeah. So, Mr. Francoeur, if you're listening to this, what Jeff meant to say was you were the most influential person in his sports career. And in fact, in episode 2, he says
well,
that.
I thought he meant coaching.
I know, I'm teasing you.
But even though my dad did coach me, but when you get to, I guess maybe I just take it for granted. And I probably do with my dad that I feel like he's supposed to do that.
Yeah.
Right? Like my mom and dad always looked out for me. And I felt like same way I do for my kids. I don't necessarily think in 20 years I need my daughter to say, my dad was the greatest coach I ever had. Because my dad was the greatest probably mentor I had with this, but at the same time, I think that I guess like anything, when the parents are on here listening, I just expect them to do that for their kids. That's kind of what you do.
No doubt.
Right?
No doubt. I was just messing with you.
Yeah, I know you're calling me out. That's all right. I can take it.
Okay, here we go.
My dad doesn't know how to log onto a podcast anyway.
So no danger.
He ain't watching.
Recently, I've seen advertising for a particular sports academy, which I'm not going to name, for 6U and up. Can you give your thoughts at a higher level on when kids need to get into such a competitive nature? This is an organization that's a travel ball, all-in type of organization, and they're already starting things at 6U at 6 years old. And this person said that seems like a lot of pressure on really young kids to be in that kind of organization at 6 years old.
I mean, I definitely think it is. Look, my daughter's 9 and we have a travel softball team, but I've also said it's how we coach it.
Yeah.
It's we don't play every weekend. We don't play on Easter. We don't play on Mother's Day, and we control it. So I got no problem if you want to push yourself a little bit and play some higher competition. I don't think that's awful. I think what it is when you're doing it nonstop, you're playing all the way into June, all the way into July with people that age. I think that's when it's too much. I've started playing travel ball when I was 10 years old, and we played a lot of games, and probably too many games. And I told you I got burnt out at 12 and I quit for summer. So I think that's a perfect example. I'm a guy, you know me, I love baseball, and I got burnt out. So I think that's where you got to protect your kids a little bit. And it's kind of like, you know what? If they need a little better competition, I got no problem throwing in a travel tournament here or there. But when it becomes every weekend, that's way too much.
Brad, your son played travel ball, so
It's tough because times have changed. When we were kids, you could play in your recreational league longer because the competition was good. And because travel came about, the rec leagues aren't as competitive. And so if you have a kid that shows that they're pretty good at a sport, it gets to a point where like, hey, they need to kind of go to another level. The question is, the problem and the question is, I guess there's so many. You could go to a tournament every weekend because it is a business. There's so many tournaments, and so you, like Jeff was talking about, I think it's not a bad thing. I don't think 6U is the time to do it, but I think at a certain point when you say, hey, we're going to try travel or club, it's just being able to be kind of dip your toe in the water first. Don't jump in with both feet right away because it will burn your kid out. And having a coach, having an organization, having other parents that share the same goals as you, that, hey, like we love our kids to get better competition, to play at a higher level, but at the same time, we're going to hold it back some. We're going to, like you said, we're not going to do it on Mother's Day. We're not going to do it on Easter. We're going to maybe pick one tournament a month to go to. But it is harder now than it used to be because in our day you could play rec a lot longer and it still be competitive.
Yeah.
Right. So it's really not. It's not so much about what organization you're playing for. It's about the volume that you're playing.
I think so at that age for sure.
Yeah. And playing, an unbelievably high volume, which gets played today for 6-year-olds. I mean, we need to make this about fun.
Yep.
And fun for the kids, not just fun for the parents.
Oh, for sure. I was competitive as they were at 6 years old. If my dad told me I was going somewhere to play 4 games in a weekend, I'd be like, see you later.
Yeah.
I want to go swimming in the swimming pool.
I want to play dinosaurs. I mean, anything. Good Lord, they're 6 years old.
Yeah.
Right. So for a parent who thinks, well, other kids are doing it, my kid's going to fall behind at 6 years
They ain't
old.
falling
No.
behind for nothing.
Right.
No kid's going pro at 6.
That's right. When discussing future possibilities with youth, say 13U and below, how much time should these kids be putting into their game to achieve their success level and avoid burnout? Most want to play in high school and some beyond that.
Well, I think that's kind of a little bit of a loaded question. The fact that, I think when you get closer to 12 and 13, 11, 12, 13, then it's okay for kids to start pushing themselves a little bit and starting to, they're reaching that middle grade or middle school level. I think it's okay for them to see more volume of games and different stuff. Again, the 6, 7, 8, 9, you got plenty of time. And even at 13, I tell you, if you wanted to play in a certain amount of tournaments and take the summer off from baseball or softball, or if you wanted to, we're going to only play like half a season at AU. We don't want to play it. They're fine. It's not going to be the end of the world. And again, I think it's how you two's, because we talk about a lot, y'all are older than I am, but you're just a smidge, but your two kids are, or your two guys' kids are older. They're all different. Some can handle a little more, some can't, and I remember my dad always saying that, my brother didn't love playing 3-4 games in a weekend at 13, 14. I did. It doesn't make it wrong, doesn't make it right. You need to know what your kid can handle. Just because they like the sport doesn't mean they want to play all day on Saturday and Sunday.
I think that with the skill sports, I think that it's okay to get them good instruction. I wouldn't have them going to instruction 3 times a week. Yeah. But for golf or tennis or baseball or something where you're going to have to learn the right way to do it, I think at a young age it's okay to get them some skill instruction. Unless you as a parent, I did not. My son chose baseball, and I did not play baseball, so I didn't want to mess up his swing. So I got him somebody to teach him how to swing the right way.
You didn't play?
No. 1 year of Little League. But and I think I led the league in hit by pitches that year. So I stuck to basketball,
You're
football.
taking one for the team.
But that's
man.
right. That's right.
Yeah, your
but
size for basketball is perfect.
that's right. 5'10". But I was a leaper. But going back to the original question, I still think we get to the point where kids love to compete, but the more adults around, the more we screw it up. And so,
right.
like, if I had to do it over again, I would have let my kid still get instruction to learn how to do things the right way, but let him play in environments that had the least amount of adults. But also environments where they want to win, where they want to compete,
Yeah.
they want to fight for it. But I would hold that back and see kind of where they were, where they were in their development in terms of, and where they were in their interest to say, okay, now let's get a little more serious.
Yeah, I think it's very kid specific too. I mean, my twin boys played, pretty much every sport, and at 13 they dropped all those to play tennis full time, and for several years they trained a lot, but they trained less than most everybody else who was as serious as them, and they had a lot of success. And then about 16 or so, we amped up the training even more. And one of them burned out as a senior in high school and just was done. And the other one ended up playing D1, but he had a lot of injuries that shortened his career, 2 surgeries. If I could do it all over again, I would have stuck with having them train less than everybody else trained because it was working.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you always say more is not better
Yeah.
necessarily all the time. And I always, I tell a girl, we practice 1 time a week with travel softball for 2 hours. If you give me everything you got for those 2 hours, we will get everything we need to done to get y'all ready for Saturday.
Yeah. Yeah.
Without burning them out.
Yep.
All right. Let's see. At what level do you think kids should be quarantined? That's an interesting word. Quarantined to one position. I think kids should learn to play multiple positions, and a lot of teams push kids to a single role to suit the needs of the team.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. On our 10U travel softball team, I have 3. Each girl plays 3 positions. I like them to have 3 positions where majority play, in their main position more than others, but they're not going to just I don't have a girl that just plays shortstop all day. I don't have a girl that just plays left field all day because I want them to continue to develop. Yes, we have our best infield, outfield, if it's 6-5 in the 5th inning, I throw that out there and try to win the ball game, but I'm not there. My girl's not just playing shortstop all day. She plays center field too. I got a girl that plays, my daughter plays left field, plays second base, and she'll catch every once in a while. So I think that's important, especially at that age, even 12, 13, you never know where you're going to go. I got moved to the outfield at 14, and then I pretty much just played the outfield. Mm-hmm. But at that point, I knew I was fast. I could run stuff down, and it made sense at that point.
Where it gets tough is if the players are at different skill levels. If you have in baseball for softball, if you have 9 players that are all about the same, then it's easy to switch them around positions. But if you definitely have stronger players, whatever age it is, that you will get pressure from the parents. You'll get pressure from the coaches to say, well, we need to, if we want to win this tournament or we want to win this game, we need our best players in the best positions. Even there's going to be, but it's easier if it's a travel team or a club team that they're pretty similar in skill levels and you don't have any holes that you got to cover up.
No, but I think that's where it also comes down to the parent.
Yep.
Being realistic and understanding. If your kid's the worst on the team and not even close to those other people, might be time for us to find another team where maybe they can get more reps in different positions. Doesn't mean they're not going to grow and become just as good, if not better than them. But at the same time, you don't want to put them in a situation where their confidence level just boom because they're playing. I mean, that's why they have you sign up for tournaments. They usually have an A league, a B league, or a gold bracket, silver bracket. It's not a bad thing. Not until they learn.
It's just interesting because it depends on what you go back to. What is your motivation? And we all as Americans love to win. But I've seen kids that grew up with my kids that were the weakest kid. There was a kid that started playing baseball with my son, probably 10U, by far the weakest player on the team, and he's got a scholarship to play college baseball now. And so, you just never know. You never know how that kid's going to evolve, or that kid's going to, and that kid just worked. I mean, he just loved baseball and worked himself into the point where he grew and he got stronger. But, it's tough when everybody in that park wants to win. Even the kids want to win. And so, but if you're trying to balance this, like, is this a long-term thing or is this a short-term thing? And that's, I'm talking like if you're a coach, especially, of how you kind of manage that and handle that, because you're going to get pressure from your parents. Like, we want to win this game, even though we all love, the real big reasons. I think you have to kind of step outside of that and kind of think about the long term. But at the same time, like Jeff says, I think it's not unwise to sit there and go, hey, in the bottom of the ninth, I may go with my best shortstop.
Yeah, I know. And you want to win. You want to do those things. I think back, though, it's funny. I won 2 state championships in football and baseball. And I'll be honest with you, I have no idea where my high school rings are, state championship rings. Like, it's great in the moment. But then that's what I'm saying. Like, is winning a AU basketball tournament at 13, is it everything?
Yeah.
Like, does it have to? If it is, then, man, I feel bad for you, because there's not a lot other things you got going. So that's what I'm saying. Like, I think you have to be realistic on the talent level of your kid, too, and where they're at. Yes, when they're 8, 9, 10, it's probably going to be a little more, disparity between the talent levels. Mm-hmm. But when you get to 12, 13, as a parent, don't put your kid on a team that's just – all these guys are so much better, where your kid's just going to suffer, lose confidence, not want to play. Give them the best ability to continue to play and grow.
Yeah, but I also think it's on the coaches too. And you touched on it in coaching your kids' team, and you just talked to coaches as well. And coaches need to, they need to not have a win at all cost mindset.
Absolutely.
I mean, especially in younger ages, you're trying to develop kids and give kids an opportunity to try different things. Now, as you get older and as you coach teams of older kids, winning becomes more important. But even in that, understand, what are the goals of your players? Get to know your players. And part of your job is to help them reach their goals.
Yep.
Okay. I have an 8-year-old about to be 9. He plays baseball year-round pretty much, sprinkles in a little flag football and a little basketball in between baseball seasons. We live in Miami. A shout out to some Miami folks here. And since there's no baseball games in the summer, I'm going to place him full-time in basketball from May through August. My question is, while he's playing exclusively basketball during that time, how often should we practice baseball on the side per week? I feel that hitting is the kind of thing you just can't give up for months and then pick it up right where you left off. What are your thoughts?
That is where I'll tell you I disagree. I think you can pick up right where you left off at that age. You're not facing Jacob deGrom, but even think about this. Even the best baseball players in the world don't pick up. Let me tell you, when the season ended in October, whenever it ended for me, I didn't pick up a bat until February 1st. That's 3 full months that I didn't hit at all. Not one swing. And you picked it back up. So look, if he's that good at baseball and he's going to realize it, let him have a break, because I just don't know what the good is. And y'all might disagree, but I don't know what the good is if you're playing basketball for 3 months that you go hit once a week. Like, I don't know
I totally agree.
I don't know where the good, like, if once you get into it, then let's go. It's like my wife was telling me over Christmas, we had like a, month break, are you going to throw to Emma Kate? No, because if we go throw once, who cares? She's not getting better. Once we start back on like January 20th, when we did, now let's ramp it up. So I'd rather you give them 3 months off where they don't do anything except play basketball, let them be. And then obviously when you get back to August, now let's get back into it.
And let them get to a point where they're itching to get back out there.
Exactly. They want
to.
So
again, my boys will say, we talked about this recently. I wish I'd given them longer breaks where they said, hey, I can't wait to get back out on the tennis court. So I think that applies across all sports.
I agree.
Yeah. I mean, I think it'll be good.
I'm a parent of a youth lacrosse player. Can you do an episode on lacrosse? Yes,
we can. Absolutely. We will have one coming up. Actually, one of my good buddies owns the Georgia Swarm. So we are going to get one of those players on here, and I'd love to be able to, and look, I don't know a whole bunch about lacrosse, but I do know that it's growing huge in our area.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's getting big. So we will do one.
Yeah, just know our goal is to have every sport represented at some point.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got next week, we got our first soccer player coming on, which we're super excited about. Watch social media and you'll be excited about who's joining us to talk all things soccer. But we've hit a number of sports so far. We've got a long way to go.
We got to get lacrosse and golf.
Yeah, we need some golf and gymnastics. And,
Jeff always, no matter what sport we're talking about, Jeff seems to kind of bring golf into the conversation.
That's
somehow.
right. We have talked a lot of golf.
We talked a lot of golf. It's been more like Jeff's golf game than it's been really like how youth sports and golf can really go.
We need about 12 episodes to break down my golf thing.
But lacrosse is coming. Let's see. As a sports parent, how should I go about giving my child some time off from their sport? Once a year, multiple times a year? After every one of their sports games or competition, probably not after every single one of their games, but I think we've talked about that.
Yeah,
The last question.
You just got to read your kid. You got to kind of see is this something that are they really having fun? There's going to be some times when you got to push them a little bit, especially if they've got an 8:00 game on a Saturday morning. They're not going to be in a great mood at 6:30 when you wake them up. No. But you got to read them. You just got to see like this. This is a time that they need a break.
And if you're playing football all fall, and that's where again I come in. What good does it do to go to the cage once every 2 weeks?
Right.
Because if you want to go to just have fun and swing the bat, I got no problem with it. Honestly, me and my dad did that every once in a while. But if you're actually thinking you're going to get something out of it and you're going to learn something new, that's pointless.
Yeah.
We did it to have fun.
Yeah, that's a great point.
So whoever sent that question in, kudos to you for even thinking about that.
Mm-hmm.
So, Jeff, what's the favorite game you ever played in, and what's your favorite game you've ever called?
That is good. I will actually say my favorite game that I ever called, and, hopefully there's not a lot of Dodgers fans that watch this, or at least yet, but was when the Braves beat the Dodgers in Game 6 of the NLCS. I was calling for TBS, so I was supposed to be down the middle, but more than anything, and not, look, I grew up in Atlanta, I played for the Braves, but Brian Snitker is a good friend of mine, and to see him get a chance to go to a World Series. Dave Roberts, the manager of the Dodgers, I love him too, and he won the World Series year before, so I was tickled to death for him then, but to see Snit get it. And the favorite game I ever played in was probably, we lost, but just game 1 of the World Series in 2010 when I was with the Rangers, to run out there, hear your name announced in the starting lineup, know you're playing in a World Series. Like for me, there was no higher, you couldn't go anywhere after that. And so, it was kind of like I made it.
That's cool.
That is.
That's cool. Brad?
I thought that was a question for Jeff. Wasn't for me. Mine would be much more disappointing.
Okay, so hey, Pure Athlete. I'm a high school basketball coach and also a sports parent, and I really enjoy your content. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Here's some questions for you guys. Actually, it says here's some questions for y'all, so I'm guessing
they want y'all's
in
advice?
close proximity to us.
Yeah, usually it says Jeff, but we'll just put y'all in there.
What are a few of the biggest pitfalls you see in parenting in youth sports? Well, we just talked about one of them a lot, which is playing too much.
I think playing too much, and you had talked about it, winning above all, wanting to see, everybody wants to see their kid win. But I think more than anything is, same times you want to see your kids fail. You want to see how they grow from failure, how they come back from it. And I think that's important. I think we can sit here and say that, how many times, I love what Smoltzy said, I think about the other podcast, how you go to a game and you listen to all the negative comments that are yelling at kids, this and that. Sometimes just let your kids go out and play. Whether they succeed or fail, they're going to learn both ways. And I think what you said, sometimes the less parents are involved, kids will figure it out.
Yeah. I think I love what David Pollack said, that the number one thing you got to keep remembering is it's their journey, not yours. And that hits me it hits me in the heart. And, when you're a parent and you have a kid or kids, that enjoy something that you enjoy. It's easy to be their parent because it's like, oh, let's go throw the football, let's go shoot baskets, and you're like, oh man, it's awesome. I'm going to be able to spend time with my kid. And then when your kid becomes more serious about it and they actually are pretty good at it, then it's like even more fun. Oh, I'll spend Saturday at the park with my kid or watching him playing a game. But when it gets to the point where it's like, hey, well, my kid could be really good, you still got to make sure that's their goals, it's their objectives, it's their journey, not your journey. And you have to just be there as a parent first. And I think another thing is that early on, you're having the opportunity as a parent to coach, because that's just the way it is in little leagues and even on your travel. But at one point, you got to realize you're not their coach. And that's so hard because you want to help them so much, especially if it's a sport that you got to pull back and say, I'm just a parent, and there's going to be, at a certain age, you got to hand it off to a coach, and that your role has to, at that point, be a parent first.
So those are great answers. I'm going to take a little bit of a different twist and say, to me, one of the biggest mistakes that parents can make with youth sports is not realizing that it is a great vehicle for you to teach your kids about life. And so don't get so caught up in their sports journey that you miss being able to be intentional about all the experiences they're having and how that is going to help them become a better person. Because 99% of them are not going to ever make a dime playing sports. So this is a time for you to enjoy with your kid, and it's a time for you to teach them all kinds of things that translate into being successful in life.
Yep.
Okay, let's see. I like this question. What encourages you? We talk a lot about what's wrong with youth sports. What encourages you about the youth sports scene today?
I think for me, probably would just be the amount of kids that want to play, that want to get out there, that want to compete. I think that's what we say. We talk about all these things. Look, we're not saying that you shouldn't compete, you shouldn't get out there, try to win. We've all agreed. I've told you I will never play where score is not kept, because I want my kids to know there's a winner, there's a loser.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think that's the cool. Kids love to compete. They love to be out there. They love to be playing. I go to these softball tournaments for me, and I know I keep bringing it up, but because that's kind of what I'm into right now. But I see the girls smiling, having a blast, and I love that. But like that's the thing. Let's continue to make it fun for them, not just at 8, 9, and 10, but as they go through middle school and as they come up through high school.
Yeah. First, to be really clear, we do this because we love youth sports.
Absolutely.
We love it. We've all had great experiences. Jeff went on to pro. Brad and I certainly aren't that, but we both played youth sports and ourselves and loved it as kids and loved doing it with our kids. And so that's why we do this. We think youth sports are fantastic. We just think that they're things that we wish we knew. As we were going along. You're in it right now. I think back to the 20 episodes that we've had, and I've told you guys this. There are things that have come out of those episodes that we've heard from other athletes, and I'm like, man, I wish I'd heard this 10 years ago.
Yeah.
It would have changed a lot of the way I did some of the things I did.
Yeah, it's I definitely am encouraged by it. I think it's one of the best things to get kids off their devices. It's one of the best things to get them off their phones, to see. It's a great way for them to develop people skills. Some of the best memories that I had, some of the best memories, I was watching a press conference of a college basketball player, and they asked him, what's he going to miss most about his college basketball career? And he said, hanging out and having meals with my buddies and my teammates.
Absolutely.
And those are the memories that you're going to take with you. Yeah. Like Jeff said, you're going to remember the championship sometimes, but it's going to be those bus rides. It's going to be those hanging out at the fast food restaurant.
Swimming pool at the Holiday Inn.
Yeah. That's the stuff that you're going to always remember.
Yeah.
And that's where your friendships are forged, really, more so than even competition. But sports gives you those chances to form those relationships and which is such a struggle right now because kids are not doing that as much because of all the devices and things like that.
And I think that's the thing. Youth sports, the thing we all love about it is the life lessons, like you said, that it teaches you. And sometimes when parents and coaches get in the way, kids are being robbed of those lessons. And I think back to what, the lessons I learned, man, were just, they were so good for me as I grew. And I want my kids to have the same experience.
Well, and I love it, and I'm going to give a commercial here for if you didn't listen to our episode with Dr. Mondo, all about mental health, mental wellness. And he talks a lot about the restorative nature of play in the brains of kids.
Yep.
And youth sports, and all the data says that kids who are playing and involved in youth sports have less issues with mental health than other kids do, than non-players do. So, that just speaks to exactly what he says. There is a restorative aspect to the fun of playing with your friends and playing youth sports. And sometimes, as y'all said, we crowd it out as parents.
Yep.
We kill it, but we have to get back to embracing the essence of what all that's about.
You said something and that kind of triggered this, is that how many of these kids that we see that go through their whole lives with structured sports and high school sports, and it's so much work and it's such a grind, and then they go to college and they're not playing a college sport, but they absolutely love intramurals.
Oh yeah.
And they love club sports. Why? It's probably because there's not a lot of structure to it. There's not a coach.
It's
there's
fun.
not parents, and they're just, like you said, they're just playing.
Yeah.
Even at 19 and 20 years old, there's still a desire for us to play.
Yeah.
Like you in pickleball.
Yeah.
I know that's really important to you, and but it's play. Even at, how old are you? 65, 70. You love playing a sport, right? So it shows you that we always want to play.
Hey,
Yeah.
you wish you had some of this, don't you?
Hey, for a 7-year-old, that's a good hair to have.
70.
Why don't you give us one more question? Then I got a question for each of y'all as we close.
All right.
For the record, I'm in my 50s. Let's see.
Late 50s.
Shut up. My question is, let's see. Sports injuries can become more prevalent when they focus on one sport at a time, focus on one sport at young ages. What are your thoughts about this?
Well, I don't know how much science is is backing that up. I do know this. The one thing I love is that different sports allow you to develop different muscles. And I think, that we talk about, like, when you throw a baseball, if I spend playing football, unless you're the quarterback, you're never throwing. So you're giving that, but you're building your legs. You're building this, basketball, you're building endurance, so I think that's the one thing I would say to that is, by playing all these other sports, you're developing all your different type muscles that could help you. If you just at 7 years old start throwing a baseball and you don't stop, you're going to get hurt. Your arm will blow out at some point. It's not meant to do it. So I think, at some point, think about it. You play football, you're up on the line. If you're just pounding, your shoulders are going to blow.
Yep.
Your ACL. So I think, I don't know if it's one specific thing, but I will say that I think playing a lot of different sports helps develop the muscles until, you're past puberty and into high school.
Yeah, I'll say there actually is a ton of science around overuse. And I've done a ton of research on it because one of my boys had a bunch of injuries.
Yeah.
And so, overuse comes from volume, and it comes from doing the same thing all the time. And so when you're playing one sport, you're kind of doing the same thing all the time. And if you do that year round, every day, then the data and the statistics of overuse injuries on kids is pretty high.
High.
ESPN's done studies and done shows about it. So anyway, I just think for parents, that's a danger point. It's a red flag that the risk of running your kid in the ground and having a serious injury, whether it's baseball or
Any
tennis
sport,
or golf
really.
or, gymnastics, whatever.
Body needs a break.
Your body needs a break.
Yep.
So finishing up, I got one question I think for y'all, and I can add at the end, but we've had 20 episodes, a lot of great athletes, a lot of great people. What is your, and not a specific episode, but what is one thing that you've really kind of stuck out to you in these 20 episodes? A theme. Give me your theme. I'll let you go first.
I don't know if it's a theme or not, but what's been really interesting to me is how many athletes' parents had absolutely no experience whatsoever in the sport they ended up playing. Like John Smoltz's parents, being professional accordion players. Jay Billis's parents being like educators, I believe.
Yep.
That really were kind of like, hey, we love you. We really can't help you in this. It's your journey. That there wasn't a lot of, hey, my dad was a former volleyball player or soccer player. It was their parents weren't even really athletes. And, it kind of struck me how many, we've had just so many great athletes on here, and just a lot of their parents were, they're like first generation athletes.
Yeah.
They're not like second generation athletes. And so, it just kind of struck me. It was just interesting.
I think for me, when we talked about doing this at the beginning, we said, hey, we're not going to be this show that, that craps on youth sports all the time and the intensity that people go after it. We again love sports, and we love kids that are trying to achieve something, that have set goals, and they're committed and they're really trying to achieve this. But I think the thing that stuck out to me is, in the midst of all that, we're stripping the fun out of sports for kids. And I think it was in Jay Billis' episode, he talked about, he really hammered high school coaches in saying, hey, 95% of your kids are going to play their last game in high school, and don't make that a miserable experience for them.
Yeah.
And so I think as parents and as coaches, let's help kids try to achieve their goals, but let's keep it fun.
Yeah.
Let's
I
make
agree.
sure we keep it as play and fun.
I think probably the one takeaway for me was all the athletes we've had, there's so many different ways that they made it to where they got to, from parents involved, parents not involved, playing 4 sports in high school, playing 2 sports in high school. Rowdy Gaines didn't even swim till he was 17 years old, but I think the cool thing was all the different ways that they made it, and they made it big. But me, the one thing I love talking about is majority of them played multiple sports. And I think it made them better. And I think that's why the toughness and everything that came with it was they were not crippled by one sport, one result. They were out there doing a lot of different stuff. And we've learned a lot of great lessons, I think, from them. And I told you, I'm so glad that we've done this for the sole fact of even me coaching my kids. There's so many things that I've taken from this and used that 6 months ago I never would have done. And so it's been so helpful. So
it's been fun.
20 episodes. We got a lot more to come. We're excited for y'all to join us and continuing to learn about youth sports. But I think, again, the one thing we can all say, we love youth sports. We're passionate about it. We want kids to play. We want kids to have fun, to get out there and compete, because ultimately that's what it's about.
Yep.
Yeah, before we jump off, let me just give a commercial too. If you're not following us on social media, then we've got a lot of great clips that we're putting out every day. We're about to launch on YouTube, so look for that, where we'll have longer segments and some stuff that you haven't seen or heard on podcast. Some original content that'll be out there on YouTube as well. So we're really just getting started.
Yep. Thank you all very much. Thanks for joining Pure Athlete. Hey guys, Jeff Rancour here. Thanks for checking out Pure Athlete, and subscribe to our channel on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you go to listen to our podcast.